Just setting up. Okay, so hi there everyone, and welcome to our Facebook Live. My name's Ellen Jones. I'm the Director for the Royal Pharmaceutical Society in Wales, and today is our Wellbeing Wednesday Facebook Live, and today we're going to be focusing on switching off. So I'm joined today by Danielle from Pharmacist Support and Harpreet from Mental Wealth Academy, so welcome both.
Hi, hello.
Firstly, as this is my first Facebook Live, can I just take the opportunity to say a big thank you to all our pharmacists and your teams who are working so hard for patients, especially at the moment during the coronavirus outbreak. We know that you're working even longer hours than usual, maybe outside of your normal scope of practice clinically, and whilst trying to take care of those around you. Be it your patients, colleagues, friends or family. You're putting everyone else first. So we want to take this time to put you first. Hopefully you've seen our hashtag Pharmacy Heroes campaign. And this Facebook Live will be focusing on supporting you with helping with strategies and tips to help you to switch off from work, and also a bit of an introduction to mindfulness as well. So as the number of COVID-19 cases continues to rise across the globe and has done over the last few months, we know that stress and anxiety around the virus have also risen alongside them. Research shows that mindfulness meditation can reduce symptoms of stress, anxiety and depression, and can have a significant impact in the workplace. So short-term stress and anxiety can be a healthy part of your emotional experiences. However, we recognize that when these experiences become chronic and increasingly stressful, it can be difficult to get any break and anxiety can increase. It can tax our immune system and cause more severe problems, anxiety, depression, sleep disturbance, for example. So we are hoping today to help with some tips from our colleagues here, Harpreet and Danielle. So without further ado, we are going to ask you to and invite you to send some questions in as we're going along. But the first question that I have to start with Danielle, can you identify yourself when you're struggling to switch off from work or feel yourself falling off the cliff?
Good question. And yes, definitely for me, I start to definitely feel more irritable and my mind is just elsewhere. And sometimes that does build up to feeling quite overwhelmed. And I'm happy to admit, I sometimes need a good cry. I need to talk it out. My husband sometimes gets it in my neck and I'm telling him all out the day, but I definitely feel better about that. But when that happens, I know it's important to take a step back and reevaluate, because you shouldn't really be getting to that point. And I think it's really important to kind of just accept and acknowledge that it's a difficult time, and we do face difficult situations, and it's okay sometimes to feel a bit overwhelmed, but it's about kind of focusing on the positives. And I know I do this, it's really easy to focus on one negative when there's been a whole host of positives in a day, but at the end of the day you kind of focus on that negative and you're not switching off and you're thinking about it. And I think it's about taking that time to take a step back, changing, adapting, prioritizing. And I think for me, I found it really difficult from sort of March, working from home remotely, full time. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I actually I'm missing that commute home, that long drive, because I think that was my time to kind of take away from the day, start to kind of process what had happened, start to kind of calm down. So by the time I got in and I was with family, I was kind of a little bit calmer. And I wasn't getting that. I think I was blowing the boundary a little bit. I was kind of, my laptop was open, I was rushing in and out. I just didn't feel like I was there. So I've started to try and build a new routine. And I think that's been helpful, but it's hard and it is about adapting. So for me now, it's about closing everything down and going for a walk to kind of replace that commute. So yeah.
Thanks, Danielle. I'm certainly feeling a lot of that. And the same question to you, Harpreet.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Danielle, actually. So quite surprising how similar we are. But, you know, it's and there's a few key things that Danielle sort of picked up on in terms of having boundaries, you know, knowing when things are getting too much and actually being okay to say, you know, things are getting a bit much at the moment. I think I just need a bit of time. That's okay to say, that is okay. And I think a lot of people worry about that. And certainly it's taken me, I mean, I'm a pharmacist myself, it's taken me many years to be able to say that, you know, actually it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to have it, to need that bit of time for myself. And similarly, I get very overwhelmed. I've got so many things I'm doing. It's really easy to just get really overwhelmed and go, I don't know where to start. There's just so much to do. I don't actually know where to start. And you end up doing a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of this and a bit of that. And you'll end up starting 100 things and actually not finishing any of them. And certainly, I mean, and I know people do that in practice, and that's what I do in practice. I end up doing this and a bit of that, and you drop this because that's more urgent. And so you just don't feel like you're accomplishing anything. But the reality is we're just really hard on ourselves. Pharmacists in particular, we're very hard on ourselves. We can be hugely self-critical. So it's about being kind to yourself, understanding you can only do so much. And that's what I do now. I just think, you know what, I can only do so much. I can't do all the things that I think I'm going to do, and that also is okay. So being that kind of compassionate with yourself, and then having that routine, as Danielle said, is when you know you can feel yourself getting to that point, start putting in strategies in place of things that you need to do in order to be able to switch off or to de-stress or relax. And we're in a really strange environment at the moment, so things are changing. We can't do the things that we might normally have done to switch off. Some of us might have gone to the gym, or, you know, we might have gone out with friends, and we just can't do that in the same way. So it's about learning different ways that we can try and switch off and sort of de-stress at the end of an evening.
I think that's an important point you raised there, Harpreet, and we're getting a lot of comments from people who are also finding it really difficult to mentally switch off from their jobs. And some of the reasons behind that they're telling us is because of the increased access now to smartphones. A lot of us are working a lot on our laptops, going from one meeting to the next, and they're also they're sharing with us a real expectation from people to always be accessible at this time. So why do some of us struggle maybe more than others to switch off? Have you got any thoughts on that, Harpreet?
Yeah, I do, and it sort of touches on a couple of things I've just talked about, actually. And I think some of them are, you know, idiosyncrasies of being a pharmacist. You know, and one of the biggest ones I'm going to talk about is the perfectionism piece, because we feel that we can't make a mistake at work, because if we make a mistake at work, you know, patients could die. So we really, you know, we're really stressed about everything being perfect. And yes, of course, when you're checking medication, that has to, you know, we can't make mistakes. We have to try and do the best we can there and be accurate. But it's when that translates to everything else that we're doing, and it translates to our lives, that's where it starts to become a problem, because it starts to become about everything having to be perfect, about, you know, getting everything done. And at the moment, there's so much going on, you're not going to get everything done. And even for those people that don't work on the front line and might have a job where you're working from home, you're not going to get everything done. And so you end up creeping into that, having a laptop open most evenings, checking emails, because you're constantly trying to get to that point where everything's off your desk. And it's just, I think it's not going to happen, and we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's a really big piece around understanding that actually not everything is going to get done, and not everything's going to be perfect, and that's okay. And that brings me on to the second point, delegation. How much of what you do actually has to be done by you, and how much of it can you actually give away? And I would say, if And one of the things I talk about in my trainings is around what's urgent and what's important, because there are certain things that are urgent and important and that only you as a pharmacist can do, or you in your role. If you're one of the pharmacy staff, that's what you do because it's your role. But there's probably other things that you are doing that you probably don't need to do, and you can delegate. And so it's about learning to be able to prioritize that and delegate the things that are important. And then finally, I'm just going to bring back to worry. And this comes to a little bit of the lack of boundaries and you know, understanding that, are you really expected to respond to an email at 11 o'clock at night? What would really happen if you turned to your boss and said, you know what, it was 11 o'clock at night and I'd picked off from work, or I was in bed? Are they really going to say to you, well, you should have been answering that email? It's about having that perspective of boundary and not worrying so much about particularly the past, because we can't do anything about the past, it's already gone. About not worrying about the future, because that's not in our control. And it's about focusing on the things that we can control. And I talk about this a lot as well when I talk about mental health. It's focusing on the things that you can control and letting go of the things that you can't. I put a graphic on that just last week, actually, putting the things as somebody who works in a pharmacy, what's in our control, what's not in our control, accepting the things that we can't control and focusing on that which we can. And when you start to focus on the things that you can, which is everything that's going on in here and what you do as a result of it, you start to worry less about some of the things on the periphery that actually you can't control. And that's a key part as well, I think, of being able to switch off. And we currently are worrying a lot about some of these things, and that's what I think stops us from being able to switch off at night.
And what might be the impact on you if you're finding it difficult to switch off?
Well, I personally think it's so easy to rush through life and not switch off. You know, it's almost harder to switch off sometimes. But if we don't switch off and we continue to kind of be on this hamster wheel, it's not sustainable. And I think we all know that, and we all know it does have an impact on our both physical and mental health. If we don't switch off, these thoughts and feelings and behaviours, it all starts to build up and it impacts that. We start to feel anxious, out of control, unable to cope. This overwhelming feeling builds. And we all know when we don't switch off, it's really hard when you go to bed. You lie in bed wide awake because you're thinking about all these things. So you start to have poor sleep, you start to feel quite overwhelmed, and you don't function perhaps properly. So you wake up in the day, you don't feel like you're working to your normal capacity. You start to have errors in judgment. You can sometimes make mistakes. And as Harpreet was saying, that's such a worry to pharmacists anyway. Making a mistake, you know, it has such an impact if someone makes a mistake. There's that worry anyway. So if you're already starting to feel like you're not in control of things, that can lead to even more stress. Obviously then impacts our mood. We start to feel irritable. Sometimes we can start to pull back. We're snappy, breakdown in communication, breakdown in personal relationships at home or professional relationships at work. So everything starts to feel, you know, quite difficult. And I think quite quickly that can happen, you know, just from not switching off, and you almost don't see it happening. And if we start to think about kind of a positive impact of switching off, I think you can see that quite quickly. We all know when we've maybe had a holiday and we go away and we start to sleep a little bit better and we feel a bit brighter and you start to feel less stress. I know my shoulders go down a little bit and you do feel it. So most importantly, I think it's about making that time because you do feel ultimately happier, and it does have that positive impact on your both mental and physical health.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, we're about 7 weeks into lockdown now, and you know, I think a lot of people are really feeling the strain of balancing work and home life. And I know I'm definitely feeling it. A lot of the things that you've touched upon there, the commute home from work is a great time to process what's gone on in the day, and by the time you come through the door, you're ready to deal with the kids and you're in a different frame of mind. Whereas now the 30 seconds from upstairs to starting tea for the kids can be very difficult, and almost never feeling present in the moment. So I wonder if you've got any top tips for us to help us with some advice on how to switch off.
Yeah, so I mean, we've put together another little handy fact sheet around some top tips on how to switch off effectively. But before I go on to that, which kind of goes into detail, I'm just going to pick up on what you said, Ellen, and it comes back to Danielle's point of, if you're somebody who used to use the commute home as a way to sort of process the day, and you now don't have that. It's about being inventive with things that we can do. So me particularly, when I get that overwhelmed feeling and I know because I start procrastinating, and I know that that's when I need to stop. I used to take myself off and I'd go and sit in a coffee shop, or I can't like people watching. That was my way of switching off. Can't do that now. So I've had to find new ways, and so it might just be I go and take a cup of tea and I'll go and sit in the garden by myself, and I'll say to my husband, can you just watch our little one, just so I can have 10-15 minutes to process. And I'll tell you, this morning I've been waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning for the last week or so, because I know I've got so much on at the moment. And so this morning I got up and I watched the sunrise. I went to a local park that I love, and I sat there, because I'm awake anyway, and I sat and I just had 2 hours of silence with no husband or son or anything like that. And it was so cathartic. I cannot tell you, if you don't watch a sunrise, and if you're up at that time anyway, just do it, because honestly it really is fantastic for just giving you that peace of mind and just letting go of some of the worries that you've got on your mind. So I just wanted to pick up on that inventive ways of just trying to get that downtime. And if I can, I'm just going to see if I can quickly share the screen here, so I can show. Can you see that there? So this is the fact sheet that we've put together, and I just want to quickly go through a couple of tips that you can do right now to help you to switch off at night. So the first thing is around setting a stop work time. We've talked about this a little bit, but say to yourself at the beginning of the day, I'm going to work till 7 or wherever time it is, and then I'm going to stop. Now, this will differ depending on the day. And if you have got webinars, as we do, we have a lot of webinars in the evening, we have a lot of calls in the evening. But if you know what you've got on that day, look at it in the morning and say, I'm going to switch off my laptop. I'm not going to check my emails from X time, and stick to it, right? Writing things down, and we carry a lot of this in our head, and this is so simple, but just again, writing things down, everything that's on your mind. I keep a little notepad near me, so that as things come to me, oh, I haven't done this, oh, I haven't done that, I just note it down, get it out of my head and onto paper. That way you don't lose sight of it, but then it's not rattling around in your head when you're trying to switch off of an evening. A big one is around reducing screen time. So trying to reduce screen time before bed by not watching TV or using your phone in your bedroom. Now, I know for some people they have a TV in their bedroom and they actually use a TV screen to switch off at night. The current advice is that you try not to use a screen within an hour of bed. But if you're somebody who needs a screen to switch off, what I would say is try not to watch something that's going to engage you too much and get your brain going. So I certainly watch some certain Netflix series and I'll be thinking about it for hours afterwards. And I just think, if you know that you're that kind of person and you're going to be thinking about things, try and give yourself an hour between whatever you're watching or whatever you're doing and on a screen and then going to bed. It's about getting your body used to the fact that sleep is coming, and it's the best way to try and switch off. And you're effectively training your mind and your body. I'm now doing this, I'm now doing that, and sleep is coming. And so there will be different things that you want to do, but it's the best way to try and switch yourself off and get some good sleep at night. And we can talk about sleep hygiene another time, but that reducing screen time is really key. Whilst we're in lockdown, again, this is a really, really important point around spend at least 10 minutes a day in a sanctuary of calm in your house where you can sit in peace, even if it's a corner of a room. So try and create a space somewhere in the house which you associate with being calm and silence. So again, it doesn't have to be a whole room. It can just be a corner of a room. You might want to make it a bit comfortable. You might want to put, I don't know, a candle there, whatever you need in order, again, for you to train your body and mind. When I go into this area, this is my downtime. This is where I'm going to switch off from the day, and getting your body used to that. And then finally, it's about what you do in that 10 minutes. So try and have 10 minutes to yourself. It might be you want to listen to music. You might want to listen to classical music. You might want to just sit in silence. One of the things that I recommend is practicing mindfulness. So that's being in the present moment and focusing on your breath and trying to then let go of all the things. And if you've written everything down and then you give yourself that 10 minutes to ground, really, that should be a really key way of saying, right, I've literally flicked the off switch in my mind now, and I'm going to let the rest of the day go and focus on the rest of the evening, whether that's, the rest of the evening or you're going to go straight to bed, whatever that might be for you. So hopefully that's helpful, and I'm sure it'll be posted on the RPS page after this webinar.
Yeah, we'll absolutely make sure that is posted. Thank you. That's really useful. You've touched there upon mindfulness, and sometimes there's mixed opinions on mindfulness, and people, and maybe it's a bit Marmite. People love it or hate it. But can you explain a little bit more about it to us and the benefits of it?
Yeah, I can. And I think mindfulness is all about paying attention in the present moment. So I talked a little bit about this already in terms of it's not worrying about the past because that's gone and there's nothing that you can do about that past. It's about not being too concerned with the future because the future's unknown. And it's about staying in that present moment because that present moment is actually all you have. And it's that's what mindfulness encourages you to do, is to stay in that present moment. And it's not necessarily meditation. I think a lot of people think it has to be something formal, and again, we're pharmacists, we like to do everything right and perfect, so it's got to be a formal thing and I've got to download an app and I've got no. Actually, you can practice mindfulness at any moment of the day in whatever you're doing. And whenever you start any kind of mindfulness practice, a really good exercise to do is to mindfully eat a raisin. And so if you ever do a course, they'll always get you to do this. So if you eat a raisin, Ellen, how long would you think it will take you if you popped a raisin in your mouth? Literally
10 seconds, 20 seconds?
10 seconds, 20 seconds,
Yeah.
probably a bit less.
Yeah.
Do it mindfully, it can take up to 10 minutes.
Wow.
Because what you're actually doing is not just picking it up and putting it in your mouth and not really thinking about what you're doing. It's about looking at the raisin, noticing it, looking at the texture, the feel, the smell, the sight, bringing it closer to your lips. What does that feel like? Putting it, then popping it in your mouth and actually holding it there and really chewing and savoring the flavor and all those things. It can take up to 10 minutes. I think when people say 10 minutes to eat a raisin, well, yeah. And the thing is, when you're doing that mindfully, you're going to get thoughts that come into your mind. That's just natural. It's the same with meditation. You'll get things that pop into your mind. There'll be thoughts, there'll be things that you think, oh, I haven't done this. And it's about not berating yourself, but it's about bringing yourself to that present moment, whether you're eating a raisin, whether you're just sitting in silence, whether you're focusing on your breathing, bringing yourself back to that present moment and observing, oh, you know what, I've just had something come to my mind there. Just being curious about it and being compassionate with yourself and letting it go. Not saying, oh, you know what, I can't do this meditation thing. It's so hard. I always do this. No, it's just about bringing yourself back, noticing, oh, my mind wandered there. That's okay. I'm going to bring it back to what I'm currently doing. And that's effectively what meditation is. And you can Google things like, if you don't want to do YouTube, what's what mindfulness is, sorry, not meditation. Meditation is a form of mindfulness. A body scan is brilliant, and you can Google that. And all that does, it allows you to release tension in parts of your body, because when you're stressed, you might be carrying tension in parts of your body that you didn't realize. And so the body scan mindfulness meditation is fantastic at releasing tension from your body and really getting you to switch off.
That's really useful. Thank you. We're having lots of comments coming in, so I'll share some of those with you. Hello, Rob and Lucy. We've had lots of very nice positive comments from members, so thank you. One really important question that's been shared by Stephen. I'm going to read this out just to make sure I get it right. Currently, anxiety amongst pre-registration pharmacists and fourth-year pharmacy students at an all-time high. They're struggling to see how their job future is mapped out, where they fit into the profession, and when and how they will be able to enter the register. What can we do to address such concerns? How can we support them when they feel like the society is turning their back on them? So, there's a lot of levels to this one. First of all, if I just turn to you both to see, for people who are experiencing really high anxiety levels due to different things that are happening as a result of COVID, and the pre-reg cohort is experiencing that, how can we best support people in that situation? Danielle, any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, we've been getting a lot of calls from pre-reg because it's such an unknown situation for them. And I think unknown does cause additional stress and anxiety because you're always thinking about it and there's not necessarily a solution at the time. I think it's important to know there is support out there in lots of different forms, and to remember that you're not alone. You can call the charity, and sometimes it's just about talking through what those anxieties are and pressures. And knowing that there will be a solution as time goes on, and it will get easier. But at the moment, it's okay to feel a bit overwhelmed, and you can reach out in lots of different ways and talk it through. And it's important to do that. Don't try and keep it in and just cope and just get on with it. Reach out if you need to.
Thanks, Danielle. And I just wanted to address the concern of how RPS is working on this as well. And I just wanted to highlight that we have got a webinar next week that is focused on pre-registration. We've got the GPHC and BPSA joining us on that. Gail Fleming will be joining the discussion to speak about what RPS are doing. So please join us. That's Tuesday the 12th at 7 p.m. You can register via the RPS website. You know, we want to make sure that we are supporting all our pre-registration students at this time. So please, anyone who is watching this, if you can share that information with any pre-regis that you're working with, it would be great to have as many people on that call so that we can support and answer their questions as well. Something that's really important to us as a society at the moment. So the next question, Danielle, could I just ask you, what support does Pharmacist Support have available for pharmacists at the moment?
Well, we have a wide range of support available, and I think for us, it's just ensuring no one in the profession faces a challenging time without someone by their side, and we are there. I think it's sometimes hard to think about switching off if you've got other worries, and there are free and confidential services that the charity offers that can help with some of the other worries that might be there. So we offer financial assistance, specialist advice, addiction support. So there are other things there if there are other worries. I think an important service we offer and which can be really helpful is our Listening Friends helpline. That is a listening service, and I think sometimes it just really helps to talk things through, and some people don't feel comfortable doing that with people who are close to them. They sometimes feel that they're burdening people with their problems, so we do offer this free confidential line, and I think that's quite good, having that listening ear. You know, it's non-judgmental and you can just talk things through, and sometimes we know from people who've used that service, just talking it through can make a big difference. So we shouldn't underestimate that. So that is available. In terms of wellbeing, we do have a wellbeing service as well. And I'd urge everyone to keep an eye out for our latest campaign that's due to launch in the next few weeks, called the Act Now campaign. So that's all about encouraging people just to become more focused on wellbeing and taking that time for wellbeing. It can feel really difficult, particularly at the moment when there's so many other things going on. But I think for us all to get through this, it's super important. And that's why we're keen to keep sharing these tips and information. So throughout the campaign, we will be sharing tips and resources, and it'll be hosted on a new website so people can dip in and out when they've got time.
Ellen, can I just add to that,
Please
if
do.
that's okay? I think I just want to emphasise the service that Pharmacist Support provide and that listening friends. Honestly, I think I get a lot of pharmacists who are really scared about coming forward and saying that they've got a potential problem with their mental health. They're worried about GPHC repercussions, fitness to practice repercussions, and so what they do is they hold on to it and try and work their own way through it. And I would urge anyone, I'm speaking from experience, if you are struggling with your mental health, please pick up the phone and just call Pharmacist Support. It's confidential. There's no, there's no way that anyone can know about the conversation that you've had. And sometimes, as Danielle said, it can be so much easier just to have that conversation and get a different perspective on things and a plan of what you want to do next, rather than struggling by yourself. I would absolutely recommend do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both. That's really important. I'll just share in the comments from our ex-director, Paul Gimpson. He's wondering if the reason could be in a cake, Harpreet. I'm definitely eating far too many cakes during lockdown, so we'd probably encourage that, Paul. So just before we sign off, any final comments, Harpreet or Danielle, that you would like to share with those that have tuned in to us?
Just thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope they're finding these helpful. And as Danielle said, switching off sometimes isn't easy. And I think sometimes people get stressed about the fact that they're trying to switch off. So I would say don't force any of this. Even if you just take 1 or 2 tips away and you say, you know what, I'm just going to focus on that for a week. I'm not going to have a screen, or I'm going to, give myself a switch off time. Just focus on one thing. Now's all about being kind to yourselves. Don't try and put any additional pressure to do anything right now, and just listen to your body and what it really wants.
I completely agree with that, Harpreet, and I thought about that right at the beginning. None of this should feel like an additional pressure or an additional thing to do on the list. It's just about making time in your own way, and that can be really simple. So yeah, I completely agree.
Great. Well, we'll draw this to an end, unfortunately. Thank you so much, Harpreet and Danielle, for joining us. It's been great to talk to you, and thank you for sharing your tips. To everyone who's watched this, thank you for listening. If you too have some tips and thoughts that you would like to share with others, please do tag us on social media. Also use the hashtag Pharmacy Heroes. Make sure that you are sharing those tips with colleagues. And again, finally, a huge thank you to all of our pharmacy heroes out there, all of your teams that are working so hard for our patients. Remember to take care of each other and to take a little bit of time out to take care of yourselves. A big thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.